Houston, we have a problem.
Have you ever noticed how when things go wrong in space, the problem is usually pretty urgent? Me too. Let's look at some filmmaking ticking clock examples, several from Space Center movies, and see how they can help you tell better stories on Earth. Today, we're going to enter into a dimension between time and space. Even if you're not familiar with the term ticking clock in relation to screenwriting and filmmaking, you've seen hundreds or even thousands of examples in movies and TV shows. They've been holding your attention all of your life.
So you're telling me you can only give our guys 45 hours? That brings them to about there. Gentlemen, that's not acceptable.
From the moment an oxygen tank explodes on Apollo 13 and we hear Tom Hanks say, "Houston, we have a problem," the clock is ticking. Not only does NASA scrap the trip to the moon for Apollo 13, but they have to quickly find a solution to safely bring the 3 astronauts back to Earth alive.
I want this mark all the way back to Earth with time to spare. We never lost an American in space. We're sure as hell not going to lose one on my watch. Failure is not an option.
Filmmakers have been using ticking clocks since at least the first damsel in distress was tied to the train tracks in the silent film era. Some refer to this concept as a ticking time bomb, a race against time, a deadline, or a time constraint. Whether it's escaping a life-threatening oncoming train or figuring out a solution to a life-threatening problem on a spaceship, ticking clocks simply add a sense of urgency, and they help hold the audience's attention. Legendary Emmy-winning producer-director Stephen Cannell, who worked on hundreds of TV shows, once said, "An example of the ticking clock would be the movie Armageddon, where the team has only a short time to blow up the asteroid in space, or all of mankind would be destroyed when it hits the Earth. This gives an underlying tension to the entire movie." In yet another space movie, The Martian, Matt Damon's character gets left behind on a mission to Mars after emergency evacuation. He's presumed dead during a dust storm, but he survived. Problem now is that he has limited food rations, and the next spaceship to Mars isn't scheduled for 4 years. How will he survive? The clock is ticking. Of course, the ticking clock isn't just limited to situations in space. Director Alexander Mackendrick, in his book On Filmmaking, An Introduction to the Craft of the Director, wrote, "As you explore some of the great classics of stage and screen, you will see that most have a bomb under the table."
Boom.
Director Alfred Hitchcock was known as the master of suspense, and in his well-documented interview with Truffaut said that the most bland conversation is fascinating to the audience if they know there's a bomb under the table that's going to explode at 1 o'clock. And there's a clock on the set. He said, "The public can see that it's 1:45. The audience is longing to warn the characters on the screen. You shouldn't be talking about such trivial matters. There's a bomb beneath you and it's going to explode." The ticking clock, he said, provides 15 minutes of suspense. Quentin Tarantino created what I think is one of the best scenes in modern cinema, using essentially that concept when the Nazi colonel Hans Landa visits a farmhouse in France in 1941, looking for a missing Jewish family. The 16-minute scene includes a seemingly bland exchange that includes 45 seconds of a glass of milk being poured and drunk by Landa. As the tension in the scene builds, the audience is shown that there is a Jewish family hiding under the house. The clock is ticking. It's a riveting and gut-wrenching scene. In the thriller movie Buried, when Ryan Reynolds wakes up in a coffin, the clock is ticking. When a Japanese bureaucrat learns he has terminal cancer, the clock is ticking. The stakes don't have to be life or death, but they're usually pretty high for the audience to care. One of my favorite indie films, Winter's Bone, Jennifer Lawrence plays a teenager who must find her missing father, or their house will go into foreclosure. When a father has 96 hours to find his kidnapped daughter in Taken, the clock is ticking. Christopher Nolan's 7-time Oscar-winning film Oppenheimer, including Best Picture, is a giant ticking clock with high stakes. And on the other end of the spectrum is the ultra-low-budget indie film Pieces of April. Katie Holmes tries to cook an important Thanksgiving dinner for her family. When she discovers her oven is broken, the clock is ticking. Spielberg is a master of using time to build tension. Pick any of his films and you'll find ticking clocks. And I need to point out that the ticking clock doesn't just work in space or in dramas, but in comedy. In the Adam Sandler movie Happy Gilmore, he has 90 days to come up with $270,000 in back taxes and interest, or his grandmother will lose her house. The action movie 48 Hours, the classic Western High Noon, and Spike Lee's 25th Hours all have ticking clocks baked into the title. Let me know in the comments some of your favorite movies and TV shows that have some sort of ticking clock. And while you're at it, hit like, subscribe, share, that little bell thing. Okay, I gotta wrap this video up in under 2 minutes. Time pressure drives drama. Most movie timelines are tight, unfolding in a single day, a few weeks, or maybe a couple months. There are outliers, of course. Russian Ark, filmed in one continuous take, it plays out in real time over 96 minutes. On the opposite end is The Right Stuff. Yes, another space-centered story that spans over 16 years of the U.S. space program. I think Philip Kaufman and cinematographer Caleb Deschanel and their cast and crew created an underrated masterpiece based on Tom Wolfe's book. I'll do a whole video on that 1983 film someday. The underlying ticking clock in that movie is the space race between the United States and Russia. In 1957, when the Soviet Union launches the first artificial satellite into space, the movie version of U.S. Senator LBJ sums up America's feelings.
Now, how in the hell did they ever get ahead of us?
Followed by the insight that whoever controls the high ground of space controls the world. In the HBO miniseries From the Earth to the Moon, they picked up on that theme again when they featured an actual clip of President John F. Kennedy addressing Congress in 1961 with one of the greatest challenges and ticking clocks in modern history.
I believe that this nation should commit itself to achieving the goal before this decade is out of landing a man on the moon and returning him safely to the earth.
And spoiler alert, it took 8 years, but mission accomplished. So what makes ticking clocks, literal or metaphorical, so powerful in storytelling? They build conflict, and conflict is the lifeblood of drama. Watch this video to learn more about that essential ingredient to storytelling. And if you want to help support this channel, buy my book, Screenwriting with Brass Knuckles. You can find the link in the description or buy it on Amazon. Also, several of the books I mentioned today have affiliate links down in the description. Hey, thanks for sticking around. If you were looking for something a little bit extra, I brought something for show and tell today. Remember, like in elementary school, show and tell was a big thing when I was a kid. This was the watch that I had when I was that age. It doesn't work. But what's really cool is when you flip it around, and I spent endless hours in elementary school just looking at this because everything, you can see the insides of the watch. How cool is that? Thanks for sticking around. Thanks for watching.